Are you gonna put it on Twitch as soon as it starts?
Hey guys,
So we're gonna get 2 streams going on Twitch as well.
Twitch has been going on for like 6 minutes, so you know what? I accidentally clicked start, so we're good. Okay.
Alrighty.
Okay, so we had a little misfire earlier. I accidentally pressed start like 10 minutes ago. That's whatever. Okay, so we're gonna introduce ourselves just because we want to start doing that.
I feel like it might be important for
for later, you know.
Personal one-on-one.
So I'm Christian, baseball god and entrepreneur extraordinaire.
I'm Noah. I don't have all those titles, but I'm here as well. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the first thing we'll talk about is the LCS. Just because we were one game left, there was, we did our podcast last Sunday, and there was a game at 8 p.m. So we figured we might as well talk about that game.
Right.
So the Dodgers won, obviously, because they're now in the World Series. They beat the Braves 4-3. Although the Braves were winning for the first, I think it was 3 or 4 innings, I didn't see them winning. It just didn't feel like they had it in them.
No, I didn't really feel the energy for the Braves, honestly. The Dodgers being such a solid team, their other pitching, their lineup, 1-9. I feel like even though the Braves did have a lead early on, the Dodgers felt more confident going in. And, sometimes you can just feel not necessarily a meltdown by any means, but you could definitely feel that the Dodgers were on, like, they're building momentum. And honestly, I don't think it was surprising to many people that they won.
Yeah, for sure. It just made sense for them. And with that, so I won. I do have another one on the way. They were, for some reason, I thought they were going to ship together, and I think they were supposed to, but they didn't. So I have the Reds one. I'll show the next one next week when I do eventually get it.
It finally went a bet.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, still on last week of coffee. I'm to start buying my own again.
Woo!
Kind of sucks. But, I mean, yeah, no, Christian's on the board with a bet here, and it's going to be interesting for this last round here, I think, of how it's going to go down.
Yeah, for sure. So far, there was 4 games. Now it's tied 2-2. I got to say, it's been a very fun series to watch. There hasn't been very many series that I've found uber interesting to watch because none of them felt competitive. This one did.
At 2-2, you can feel how they complement each other's playing styles and how it's really you can really see the competitiveness in each team. Taking from a team like Tampa, who is kind of just pieced together at we can talk about the salaries. It's like I think they're just over $20 million in cap.
Yeah.
Whereas the Dodgers are up and over $100 million.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous how they're doing it right now. And it's been impressive to see that they've been going. Not only is it that they're tied, but they're going back and forth. It's not like a team won 2 games, then another team won 2 games. It's Dodgers, Rays, Dodgers, Rays. If it keeps going that way, then the Dodgers win. That's whatever. But
yeah, it'd be cool to see who's really going to break the series open, because it feels like they're kind of in a pattern right now. Obviously, like you said, back and forth. Last night, arguably, could have been a Dodgers win. Bit of a meltdown.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. But no, it'd be cool to see how this series kind of finishes up. I mean, if especially with the Dodgers pitching, I could see Kershaw or Buehler definitely splitting on short rest, going in maybe pitching 5 innings or whatever, just for their playoff experience. And then I think that they probably complement the team best going forward.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And that's one thing that I think was very impressive was that. So obviously the Dodgers won game 1 and 3. Then those were the days that Buehler and Kershaw pitched. I think that's very indicative for them, because no pitching has been good for the Dodgers really otherwise. It's only been Buehler and Kershaw, I feel, and I think that's going to make the difference because their bats are good. I would say they are better than the Rays. However, if those 2 starters aren't pitching or don't do well enough, then the Rays have the advantage immediately.
For the Rays, I'll ask you this question. Going up a team like the Dodgers, they've been playing pretty well throughout the postseason, obviously winning 2 of the 4 games so far. Going into this past 3 games, what do you think the Rays need to do with a very limited superstar caliber team? Like, who needs to step up to?
Well, you know what I think it is. Their pitching has already been known to be good. I mean, they got the stable. They got their 3 borderline superstar pitchers. Right. I wouldn't consider any of them actually superstars, but their top 3 are like aces. They're very decent. You could put them in first. But I think the the thing that they really need is just in general, they need a little bit of extra bat going on, because going into this series, they had the worst average of any team that had played in the playoffs, including teams they had faced and lost all their games, such as the Jays. So that's pretty bad that your average is the worst. It's good because then that means if you won, then your pitching just did even better, or that the other team committed errors, or you made them commit errors, or whatever, or walked. Those different things also have effects on it too, because it's just average.
Right.
But still, I think they need a bit more on the bat end because they don't have enough there right now.
I mean, we got players. I feel like Kiermaier could probably step up a bit more than he has contributing to the series. I mean, he's been solid. But being a veteran player, I think that he has a pretty solid leadership position in the clubhouse that he could bring to the team. Just like some like mentor things. But if the Rays continue how they're playing, I think they have a solid chance to win.
Yeah.
Last night, I think, could have been a very emotional and mental win for the Rays.
I think by all rights, I don't think the Rays should be going into today's game as we won yesterday, because they did win yesterday. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that necessarily they should fully feel like they deserve the win. Maybe you guys should comment on that. Do you think that the Rays really deserved that win? Was that really a win in your eyes for them?
I don't think it matters if they deserved it or not. At the end of the day, they won. The Dodgers made some errors, and that's how baseball works.
Yeah.
1-2 bad plays, you make the mistake. The fielding error, and then the miscue with the catcher. That's just how games work, especially in baseball. It's such a game, like one play could allow 2 to 3 runs. Thank you.
Yeah, now we're both fully on the screen. Does not look good.
For sure. But I think the Rays need to take away from yesterday is not think of we shouldn't have won. I think they should take away we did won. Let's build the momentum. The Dodgers are at the lowest of low they could be at right now. They're in the World Series.
And that was pretty upsetting.
They're in the World Series, clearly the better team. And now they're 2-2 with a team that's significantly under them. And they're going into game 5, it would be, with a loss. So I think there's going to be some serious mental.
I think there's some things that need to be considered. Even Lights. See, look, we forgot things. We sat around and we still forgot things. I think there's some things we need to consider, though. One thing that they were talking about, and I think it's very impactful, is Globe Life Field, where they're playing right now.
Right.
Not that necessarily, because it is a neutral site, give or take. It's an American League field that the Rays have not played in at all outside of these past 4 games.
Right.
The Dodgers have played their past, how many was it? I think it said 15 games now in there. So having played that many games in a ballpark is in a row too. Not even just like, we're going to play, so many here, play so many in LA or whatever. It's all here. So, this is now, they've gotten used to it. It's their home. They've acclimated to it. They've, you can see Mookie clearly figured that shit out right away because he's been catching balls left and right. He knows that field like the back of his hand now.
Especially from a fielder, it's always weird going in, as an outfielder, going into a new ballpark with different dimensions in the outfield, especially the left and right fielders. Center is pretty much generic. It's more so distance. But then you look at you take Fenway Park, for example. The left fielder has to deal with a bit of a shorter wall than normal, but the wall goes up like obviously super high, the Green Monster.
So then now they have to, account for the bounce.
Right. There's no more, ball's like 30 feet over my head. No doubter home run. Hits the top of the wall and it's like sitting with them. 100%. It's like all these feels. Baseball is the one sport I find where it's not specific dimensions for every field. I think
although it makes it a lot of fun, I think it kind of ruins the idea of being able to compare players a little bit. Now, I can understand the comparison between stuff like Coors Field just because, high altitude. Although I wouldn't judge that so much because despite players being better there and they're playing their home games there, most players don't play their whole career in Coors. And even then, that's only 50% of their games where they play better. When they leave Coors, they're 50% worse.
Right.
Because they play worse at other fields because they're so used to a home that is more lofty.
Not to mention with the high altitude, obviously the ball's going to carry more with the thinner air.
Yeah, and I mean,
if they maintain that, that level of play when you go and play in like San Francisco, right at sea level, right?
yeah, and that's saying something.
Yeah, you're clearly good. It's not just the altitude. I mean, obviously it plays a factor to a degree, but at the end of the day, unless you're playing in a bubble with controlled air climate, like, come on.
We'll see, and like that's why in general I try not to compare players, like especially if they're like say. I saw 2 or 3 articles in a row that were comparing Mookie Betts to Trout in the past. Obviously, if you're talking career, there's no chance you can even think right now that Mookie Betts is better.
Agreed.
But if you're thinking the past 4 years, it's pretty damn close. I'll agree. It's splitting hairs. However, you can't really compare that because Mookie Betts might have been better at some fields, whereas Trout might have been better at some other fields. You can't necessarily judge that. And like Mookie played in Boston for most of that, and then played with the Dodgers for 1 year, and then Trout played with the Angels. So having played in different fields definitely has a big impact on that.
Not to mention going from a solid, a very different ballpark, being an AL ballpark in Boston. You're going from, Northeast USA to literally Southwest USA, like completely different side of the country. All these little things, in such a mental game like baseball, you see players dropping like flies as soon as they change atmospheres. And everyone's like, why? Like, why is that happening? I think a big part of it is the mental game. They're all skewed up,
Yeah.
Baseball is a game of like kind of like ritual. You talk about pitchers and the pregame rituals. They always have a same wind up. Batters have the same song, same kind of like stance in the box. That goes to their daily lives too. That doesn't change.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're now waking up in a new city, that can completely screw you up. I do think it's also kind of hard to compare them specifically because they're different positions. Even they're not even the same position. So it's like, so you can't count their defense. You immediately can't, because right field is automatically an easier position to defend, whereas center is harder. And that's undebatable, really. So, it's kind of unfair to think, oh, okay, so we can compare them because, Mookie is a much better fielder or Trout's a much better fielder or whatever. So,
I think that it also has to play a factor into that. Well, obviously, center field is a way more important position. Harder being a sense that they also have to judge every ball hit into the outfield. If it's hit like down the line, they have to play recovery. The left fielder butchers it. He's got to be there for recovery off the wall. Same goes to the right field. Whereas the right field ball hit down into left center, he can just stand there, chill out. Like, it's not a big deal. But the center fielder moves on pretty much every ball hit.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's tough to compare. Okay, so obviously that was a bit of a tangent. We'll get back to the World Series a little bit. I'm kind of disappointed on May and Gonsolin. Very disappointed because they were decent this year. They've been decent in general. I was suspecting that the Dodgers, although they would only have 2 aces, that they would have, Julio Urias, who did do good, Tony Gonsolin and Dustin May, but then they've lost 2 of those, so it's only like 2.5. And it's kind of, that's where it makes it hard for the Dodgers, because we expected them to have better pitching, but they haven't really. So it's very tough to watch.
Yeah, no, I think Kershaw has been good this World Series for sure. Finally, playoff Kershaw is coming back. Walker Buehler, I also found, what was he, 6 innings pitched, 10 Ks or something like that?
Yeah, he didn't finish 6 innings. It was like 5 2/3.
Same thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, I've been finding he's been playing excellent. The Dodgers have been batting fairly well as well. I think we're in for a good final 3 games. Honestly,
it's gonna be awesome. I'm really excited to watch, and you guys should watch too. It's an incredible series. It's worth watching. People consider baseball a boring sport, but especially when you get into the postseason, man, the tension is high. And when each game means everything, they put all their players on the line.
You develop almost a relationship with teams that you would never expect to. Like as both Jays fans here. I mean, the Dodgers, even though they're like completely stacked, their payroll is ridiculous. You've almost like developed a kind of like attachment with them. Even honestly, I hate the Rays. Can't stand the Rays. They're
well, okay,
divisional.
that's partially because they're in our division. However, don't get me wrong.
Good for them.
Specifically for me, I like all teams. There's a few teams that I don't like just because there might be a specific player.
So you like the Astros?
That was part of what I was saying. There's a few teams that I'm not a huge fan on just because they're not. I don't know. They got maybe a player or two that I'm not a huge fan of. The Astros in general because they're cheating.
I would say like the whole team.
Well, there's a few players there where I don't blame, and they even said like some of them said sorry when they didn't need to. So, for example, the pitchers on the Astros, no blame. I don't blame them, but they should all leave there to keep their history alive because the cheating didn't affect them.
Right. It was strictly for the batters. But at the end of the day, cheating's cheating.
And some of them even like some of those batters, they said sorry when it hardly affected them. Like they had stats on who it affected most and stuff like that. Like Josh Reddick when he left and went to the Mets at first. Was it Reddick? Yeah, it might have been Reddick. Well, anyway, and he said sorry, like he felt really bad. It was almost breaking down, and a lot of us are like, you don't have to feel bad, man. Like you didn't do anything. You didn't really do anything. You didn't really do much. Whereas for other players, like you can see it affected them a lot. Like Altuve shouldn't have won an MVP.
No, I get that. I think it comes down to the point where maybe it didn't affect them, but they knew about it.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone in that clubhouse was oblivious to the fact of the buzzers and like the coughing, garbage can smacking.
Yeah.
You know what? You apologize. May not have affected you. At the end of the day, by not saying anything at the time, you contributed to it.
Yeah.
Whether or not it affected your stats, whether or not you're a pitcher, ball boy, whatever.
Yeah.
If you knew about it and you knew it was going on, and that's the reason when you won the World Series.
Although one player I do feel bad for is Mike Fiers, just because. So he was part of that team. He knew about it. He didn't say anything. So obviously, he should get some blame. However, the amount of flack that he got for being a part of a whistleblower in a way is terrible because, and I hate that for so many different things in general. Like we can say even coronavirus, we were hating so bad on the whistleblower because, this was such a bad thing or whatever, but we can't be doing that. We need these whistleblowers to find these things to make things better. If we just let the Astros cheat, and from the way it sounds is that they've confirmed that they did cheat in 2018 as well, at least half the season.
Right.
Then, we can't just let that slide.
No, and the fact that it continued. Like, you know what? You won your World Series by cheating. Maybe it would have not made it as bad, but the fact you're carrying it into the next season means you have no guilt about it at all.
We won. Let's do it again.
Exactly. Not to mention, like, when you win the World Series, there's so many incentives you get. Payouts, bonuses, if you win MVP.
Well, they won something like that team specifically. I don't know if it was the owners or if it was the players split up, but they won like $35 million.
Yeah, no, the money is ridiculous.
Lot of money for a top level guy. That's an entire year's salary. Like Trout gets that much money in a year.
Right.
That's a lot of money, man.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're cheating your way to get that, I mean, that's guilty money. Like, come on.
Very guilty money.
At the end of the day, they cheated.
And they ruined careers. There was the Jays pitcher, Mike Bolsinger. He tried to do the lawsuit. I don't know whatever ended up happening to that. All he wanted, and I don't see why this is so bad, was because they ruined his career as well as probably several other pitchers' careers. He doesn't want any money. He wants all that winning money to go to LA charities because LA was the other team in the World Series.
Right.
I think that's fair. I don't sure it's a lot of money, but imagine how much that would help those charities. And,
for sure,
a $35 million donation, that would, even though it's because you did something bad, it would look hella good. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, I think the best approach to solving this issue, remove all the incentives they got, all the money for sure. I would start with that, finding the players, giving the money to the Dodgers organization. And
maybe not the Dodgers organization, but charities within their region.
I was going to say, give it to them and then let them divvy out the money as they felt necessary.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't think necessarily that the Dodgers deserve the money just because if they didn't cheat, we can't be 100% certain that they would have lost.
No, I know what you mean.
Although we can feel it in our hearts that cheating did enough that they should have lost. I can't confirm that in my heart that they actually.
But we'll never know, though.
We'll never know,
That's
and
the thing.
I hate that. I wish we could just take those teams,
Redo it.
Redo it. Somebody go on MLB The Show 17 and
simulate that match.
Put them together. Or no, I guess it'd be MLB The Show 18.
Yeah, because it'd be the
year later.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Okay. Let's go back to the actual World Series of 2020. I love the tangents we're going on today. I'm the two people I'm impressed with. I chose one from each team because I thought I might as well decide not to favor too much, although obviously by our bets. And we'll explain.
And the giant flag in the background.
Yeah, and the giant flag in the background. So for the Rays, I think Arozarena is incredible.
Yep.
He's wrecking house. He's having a time. Hitting 9 home runs in a single postseason is incredible. The only thing that I would put a little tiny asterisk on there because he's definitely going to have significantly more plate appearances. I think it was they were showing that he had. What was it? I think he already has more than any amount of plate appearances that are in like the top 10 or something like that of home runs. So, and that is easily attributable to another round of postseason, having 18 teams or 16 teams. I get it. It's only 2-game difference, but that's up to 10 plate appearances.
Yeah.
That ended up being like an extra home run or two. That's the difference.
Yeah, no, it's all those extra plate appearances, the stats. When you're batting,
it doesn't diminish it though. He's still incredible.
Still unbelievable player.
He's the only good hitter right now.
And he's going to be playing probably guaranteed the next 2 games as well.
Yeah.
For the World Series. I think it's cool that, he kind of like emerged and he just kind of like he's like took the team in his hands, like, all right, I'm gonna carry us. And yeah. I think that's kind of very cool of him. And some leadership qualities.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you know what? I can guarantee you 2 things. One, the Cardinals feel terrible that they traded him.
Yeah.
I felt terrible for the Cardinals at the beginning of the trade because they should never have done that in the first place. Arozarena already seemed like a decent player. Not above average, just about average. And then they also traded Jose Martinez for, I don't even know what it was. It wasn't anything great. Or it didn't end up being anything great for them. But... and then 2 is he will definitely be the World Series MVP if the Rays win.
Yes.
Well, there's nobody else. Not even remotely. No batter has been good enough. There's so many people in the lineup that has slumped, like G-Man Choi. He's supposed to be, one of their powerhouses because, he's at first base, so you're supposed to generally be good at hitting at first base, but he was good at hitting at first base.
Right.
Not this postseason. And then, you got like Austin Meadows only just came back recently. And, he's probably still not 100%. So we can't say that he's going to wreck house. And you got literally anybody else, like all the guys that you need to hit aren't going to hit just because they're not really power hitters. Like Kevin Kiermaier, you want him to hit, but he's not a power hitter and he's never been a huge average guy. So
no.
you just hope on his field to be perfect.
He's more of a mental guy to have in the clubhouse. Like I said, from being a veteran player, he's more of that kind of a presence. If he goes up and he hits, that's all. Depending on if a rookie hits versus a veteran hits, it's completely different vibes. A rookie, sure. Everyone's hyped up, like good for that guy. When a veteran hits, it's almost reassurance to the team that we have hope.
Yeah, exactly.
It's completely different vibes. And in the postseason, you want the veteran hits.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's only one pitcher. I have to look it up, and I'm going to look it up right now. But the Game 2 pitcher, he pitched a great game. I just can't remember who it was. I think he would have a chance, but I don't think it's nearly close enough. I think Arozarena is going to win that one.
Yeah, no. If anyone is following baseball at all right now and has any updates coming through their phone, Arozarena is pretty much headlining everything for Tampa Bay. He's kind of been he's the heart and soul of their team right now. And as long as he's continuing to play well, I could see them giving the Dodgers a genuine fight for the World Series.
I wouldn't even give Game 2 winner. Okay, so yeah, no, so it definitely won't even be a starter. That's for sure. It won't be because nobody did that great. And there was no reliever that was super fantastic.
No.
That like some of them were good, just not.
Right. Who'd you have for the Dodgers?
For the World Series MVP, That it feels obvious, but it also feels at the same time like it's wrong because I have like 4 picks.
Understandable.
So the obvious one first is Mookie.
For sure.
He's definitely the number one position player to have a chance. He's already had 2 games with 2 steals. That's ridiculous. I mean, you don't see many people stealing anymore. And I don't praise small ball. I don't think small ball is great. I know I saw a meme the other day that's people who like small ball, nobody will ever understand them. And I don't, but seeing steals definitely kind of warms your heart a little bit, especially in the World Series. It brings a little extra fun.
It's always entertaining too, because not to mention, does it only
no failed attempts, I don't think.
Right, and it's like getting the batters moving is what people want to watch. They want to see people advancing the plate, and getting a hit. To get general average of being like 225, 250. So you just see a hit every 2 to 3 at bats for 10.
Yeah.
Seeing it's a bit of an excitement because it's a different way of getting past the bases, and especially with the caliber player of Mookie Betts, it's like even more entertaining to see, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. The other position player that I can't say that I'd favor, but he's definitely had an incredible postseason in general, and I could see him having a chance if he kind of rips one to the Rays in the next couple games. Is Corey Seager. I can't put Bellinger in there because although he had a great first game,
right,
he's kind of dipped a little bit. And I mean, he hasn't been fantastic this year. But yeah, Corey Seager, he's up there with Arozarena right now. He has 8 home runs, so he's tied for second with like Barry Bonds, Carlos Beltran, and Rodriguez. I think he was the third guy. And then Randy obviously is first, but he's not far behind. It just makes it very interesting that for Arozarena, he's a rookie.
I wonder what they're going to do for the stats this year with the extended playoffs, how they're going to modify that. Because as a record holder with, a standard playoff length, was it 3 rounds, I believe?
Well, unless you're in the wild card, then yes, 4.
Right, but that's just one extra game, right?
Yeah, that's just one game.
Right, so I wonder if there's going to be any stat modifications. I don't think there will be.
No, and you know what? I don't really think there should be.
I agree.
Especially because
this year's been messed up anyways.
Yeah, especially if they want to make this the new norm, which I don't agree with, and I don't want to praise Rob Manfred for saying, just because the 2 number 1 seeds made it, that means nothing to me. I don't think it was a great idea, but I do think it is kind of fun to watch because it adds some teams that definitely might not have had a chance to actually have a small chance.
I like it. I'm more of I am very much so cheering for the underdog. I love the underdog stories, and by adding these, okay, yes, but generally speaking, I love bringing in other teams that don't really have a chance and just feeding them a chance to maybe do well and upset the top team. But for this year, the main reason I don't think they'll do a stat correction is because of the shortened season. They didn't have enough time to prepare for the playoffs, so these 2 extra games, it's different.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I think having those games, I don't think should strip them of any stats that they had, especially when you're playing 60 games, whereas the regular season you're playing 162. That's 100 games off.
Yeah, which kind of sucks. I mean, thinking back, it really would have been nice for them to start even as early as the beginning of July, add another almost 20 games.
Yeah, well, for next year, they'll go back to be regular season format.
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, second wave's kind of hitting through, so we'll see how that goes. Is there any update on how the playoffs are gonna work? Is it going back to normal or the extended?
I don't know if they're gonna bring it back. They haven't said anything about it. It was only a 1-year deal, so now they're figuring out. I assume they're going to talk with the MLBPA.
Right.
The one rule that is changing, though, that's going back because it was a 1-year deal, unless they change it, is the DH rule.
Right. Yeah.
Which the Players Association would be downright dumb if they didn't extend that. I think it was the most beneficial thing for them ever, because I believe that pitchers shouldn't have to hit. They can if they're good. I wouldn't deny Madison Bumgarner. If he wanted to hit, I would let him hit. I wouldn't deny him of that. However, I would not for a second force them to hit, just because. Look for the American League, they've always had better batting, but that's not necessarily by much. And I think that's largely just because having that batter that's just a batter without a fielder gives you so many more options, so that say you have a center fielder like that's losing his fielding touch. But he's been swinging that thing, and now it's now he has a position.
I think with the DH rule to make the league, not to mention with the whole like pitching, making the pitcher hit, I think making the league as a whole completely fair. Both leagues are going to be playing on the same rules, same circumstances. I think that's very. You can also like compare stats a bit better too. If you're having pitching coming up and he keeps striking out or flying out, you're not setting into the turn of your order very well. Yeah. If you have a solid 9-hitter, you can like hit the turn of your batting order and then start 1, 2, 3 with some solid hits.
And I think one big thing that it's such a minor thing, but to me it feels big, is the idea that you remove the silver slugger for the position of pitcher in the National League and just make it so it's DH for both, which I think is completely fair. I think there should just be DH that way, and then you have the Gold Glove for pitchers, because they shouldn't have to worry about that. Like that's not because then they have to think about other things, and then their pitching gets worse because of it. And then
right. Speaking of awards, let's go through some of our predictions here.
Well, first I want to talk about the Player Choice Awards, just real quick because they seemed pretty right. They were all like pretty much what I expected. Bauer won the pitcher in the NL, Bieber won the pitcher in the AL, all that.
Pretty straightforward stuff.
All straightforward. However, there was one award that I did not agree with, and that was Freeman winning the Player of the Year. I think he was fantastic. He was the best in the National League. He was not the best player, I don't think. I think Bieber was better. I get it that there's definitely like there's a rift between like position players and pitchers. However, Bieber was good enough that it wouldn't matter what position he played. He was good enough that he was better than anybody else.
I think a good debate would be, I don't think I would compare any other player to beating out Freeman for Player of the Year. Being in the AL, the pitching was definitely significantly lower than the typical standards were. So Bieber had a chance to shine a bit more with his stats because there's really no one to really push him to play as he did.
And that's kind of what I think was part of why I think he was so dominant, was the fact that the reason the American League has not such bad pitchers or whatever, they were worse in general, was because the bats were going nuts. It wasn't because they were just worse. It was the bats. And because Bieber did, that just makes his accomplishments that much better, that he dominated to the degree that he did. It was impressive. And I don't think that, obviously to some it might be a debate, but I don't think it is. It should have just been Bieber, and that's the only one that I kind of debate on.
Yeah, no, if Freeman doesn't win it, Bieber would be definitely a contender. What other awards do we have down here?
So we got the Gold Glove finalists now. They've released those. Not really contentious, just very weird. They had some odd spacing issues, I guess. I don't know. It was very strange. So the first thing was that the Rays, they're in the finals. They have been considered a very highly touted defensive team. They're, that's what I think got them to the World Series, really.
Right.
Not a single Gold Glove finalist. Nobody in the top 3 for any position, which I think is kind of ridiculous because, like I said, they're a defensive team. They're a very good defensive team, and they are. I mean, I watch them for their defense. Their bats are crap, so I don't watch them when other than if the other team has a good pitcher. I want to watch their pitching. I don't watch when they're at the plate because it's not fun to watch them at the plate. But their defense is just fantastic and their pitching is great, so it makes it that much better.
Being a well-balanced team, I think the defense obviously is going to shine a bit more. I think that's what their focus was when they did all their spending. Very minimal spending, I guess. But no, the defense is pretty locked up. So honestly, it's a bit of a surprise to not see anyone put down for any Gold Glove awards. But I mean, they do have some solid players in there. Babe Ruth for MVP. Bro, I think you're still drunk.
Yeah, definitely not in this age. No, I don't think he would have been MVP. I think that was just the age he was in, and that's a video that I'll do for a later date. Is I don't think if Babe Ruth was inside of his era, because that was a well-known to be easy era, very well-known to be easy.
Yeah.
had he not been in that era, he would have been either garbage or there would have been players better than him in that era.
It is so hard to compare players of the past to players of the present. I think mainly players like for other sports, even like Wayne Gretzky to the hockey now. Wayne Gretzky, obviously the star of his time. Would he be the same caliber as he's now? No way.
No.
If you watch him, he's like obviously he's good dangles. His shooting is way below par. And then you look at other sports like Joe Montana being compared for the best quarterback of all time. Not even close. The defensive skill back then was not even close to how it is now with the corners. Tom Brady will always have that.
And that's why I argue that Babe Ruth shouldn't be considered the best player.
No way.
That's like, it's frustrating for me because, like, you see on all the stats things that he was the best. He was the best. There were, and whenever you talk to players who's the best of all time, they say it's him. But that's because of his era.
Right.
I think what we should be looking at is when it comes to, like, say if it's a hitter, to consider what the best hitter of all time is, we should be considering what was like the hardest era, and then who did the best in that era, and then vice versa. So, for example, for me, the best pitcher, Pedro Martinez or Randy Johnson. The only reason I believe that is because the late 90s to early 2000s were the hardest batting or the hardest pitching era
for sure
ever. Like,
everyone was on the juice. Everyone was like smashing bombs,
and they dominated.
Yeah,
they just wrecked house. So I don't think it's fair for I don't. Yeah, we'll talk on that one in a second. I don't see anybody else in that conversation. Bob Gibson had a great career where he had a year where he went 1.12 ERA. Like that's crazy.
Right.
He was in like a very easy like 10 years.
That's why you got to break up this goes for sports worldwide. It's broken into eras. You know how they have for basically the modern era of baseball.
You got modern, you got dead ball, and then you got another one.
The other one
that I can't remember.
But I don't think that does justice because modern era goes like way back.
Yeah, it doesn't. That should be split. Like there should be juice era. Modern era should probably be around, I'd say around 2005 or 2008 to now. You could argue that any of those years you could start the cutoff because they could still be considered in the juice era.
Right.
But I would consider like the 90s, we'll say like 94, 95 to 2004, 2005.
Yeah. Seems like every 10 years it kind of changes 10, a little bit.
Years it changes enough that it's like, you know what? And okay, so then before that, like the from 92 or 93 or 94 or whatever to I'd say probably like mid 70s. So that's almost 20 years. That's the speed era.
Right.
That was, everybody was lightning fast. That was when, Ricky Henderson was dominant in the 80s.
Exactly.
You had Lonnie Smith, and
it's always about the change of play.
Oh, yeah.
That goes for sports. Everyone, they discover a new way to play the game and everyone adapts to it. Football, it's been changed to, a mobile quarterback. Hockey, it's now about the speedsters. It changes every like 10, 15 years because teams don't know how to win anymore. They take a whole new approach on how to do it. And honestly, for the most, it works.
I'm joking. My Lord, I'm dying. Okay. Right. Yeah, so Vladdy for MVP. No. He needs to fix his launch angle. He needs to talk to someone with like maybe talk to Yelich. Have a good conversation with him. Maybe a couple conversations.
I know he was talking to T. Oscar. I know throughout the year for his breathing technique. You saw him, like, if you watch him at the very beginning of this year and then like 15, 20 games in, his breathing completely changes. It just like small stuff like that. He actually started playing good again.
You say he needs to lose 100 pounds. I don't think he necessarily needs to lose weight because you know what? Some players.
He's really fat though.
He's fat. Don't get me wrong. But he did lose weight before the season started. He might have gained it back. Who knows? But
he's looking pretty chunky out there.
But nonetheless, I don't think he necessarily that's not a requirement. I think because he's got the power, and I think if he loses weight, he might lose some of that power.
He is a thick boy.
He is. He's very, very thick. But I think he just needs to find his launch angle because you can hit the ball as hard as you want, and Lord knows he hits that ball.
He's a good 3-4
But-
hitter. Getting the guys on and then just sending one deep to score players. And then obviously going to your 5, 6, 7 part of the order where it's kind of a
He's just unreliable to keep it to keep him in third or fourth just because he doesn't hit it in the air enough.
right.
His fly ball rate is too low, way too low. And then Barry Bonds, GOAT. I would agree that he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think steroids matters in that fact because even if you cut off the years where you can tell, he was eating a thick, good meal every day kind of thing. That even before then, he was still good. Like he was still, on the trajectory to go to the Hall of Fame. He just kind of outlived that with.
Everyone was on the juice though. That's the thing though. It's so hard to compare.
And I don't know. Okay, so maybe what you should do then is cut his numbers in half those years. He'd still make it, I think.
Yeah, no, he was just so outrageously good. I don't think there's no way to divide up his stats to make it valid. I think you just need to take it with a whole new approach and compare it to other players who were using it.
And I think he deserves him. He's like, regardless of how much juice he used, how jacked he was good enough that it didn't matter. Like I was looking at I read or watched an incredible video by John Boyce a while back. I've watched it like 4 times now because it's a really good video. But it was talking about how Barry Bonds in the year of like 2003 or 4 when he had so many walks, it was ridiculous. He didn't need a bat basically because he didn't hit a ton of home runs that year. He hit only like 40 something, which is crazy to say that's only not a lot. But he walked enough times that he was on the base all the time. He was intentionally walked. Jesus, I don't even remember how many times it was, but it was like 200 times. Like it was genuinely a lot of times. And then he had great plate discipline, so he always ended up getting on base. And
steroids are one of those funky things.
And steroids doesn't affect that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't because players or pitchers respect him in a different way. They know he's a big hitter, so obviously they're going to intentionally walk him. That is a factor of that
for sure.
And then there's a lot of different factors. Steroids. Obviously it's completely unfair. It seems like a very much of a cheating episode today. At the end of the day, cheating is wrong. Obviously, it's so hard to compare stats because of that, and it's so hard to decide who deserves what after because you can't guarantee what would have happened if they didn't.
However, I have a hard. That's the only one where I have a hard time. Like, don't get me wrong, I really don't like that he cheated. I think that it really puts a stain on his legacy. But he's the one player in specific that I believe does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame from cheating. Because I think
Pete Rose.
Well, yes, him too. But he didn't even cheat. He didn't cheat.
No, he
gambled.
He gambled. That was the dumbest thing ever. He wanted to come back and play for free. He offered to play for free. He said no.
Well, I don't even get that one either because he bet for his team to win.
Yeah,
it's not even like
you're throwing games at that point because it's obviously if you bet against your team, super easy. You just go up, swing at garbage, do nothing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you bet for your team, you still have to win.
Yeah. There's a few players that are not knocked out of the conversation that I really don't think should be. Bonds should be in. Pete Rose, 100%. If in the next 10 years he's not in, I'm going to be so pissed. The fact that he was banned, he needs to be back. And the fact that they're not banning the Astros and letting them, their legacies be fine. It's pissy. Okay, so back to the Gold Gloves. Sorry, guys. We like tangents. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable.
So are roids, I guess. Yeah, roids makes baseball fun.
Roids can make it fun, although
100%. It's more entertaining to watch, but at the end of the day, what the heck?
But then, at the same time, I don't want to
It's almost more fun to see someone naturally build up and then just doing that ridiculous. Like Mike Trout naturally doing that. It's crazy.
I would agree with doing having each player have to do roids, but I don't want that to be like a placeholder gate for you're only allowed in the MLB if you do steroids because
that's so dumb.
Because that's dumb. Because if you want to do it naturally, then you do what you do. So 2 of the things that I thought were interesting was both of the Chicago teams actually had a position where they had 2 of the 3 finalists. The White Sox had 2 of the 3 catching with James McCann and Yasmani Grandal. Funnily enough, I don't think either of them are going to win. Funny, right? I think Roberto Perez is going to win just because he caught some. The fact that some of the pitchers that he was catching did so well, I think it's a gigantic factor. And the White Sox didn't have good enough pitching for the catchers to have that effect.
It's crazy for a position that only especially with catcher. Usually you have your designated catcher throughout the year, and then like you have like that one-off pitcher who likes a different catcher. You know, like we have R.A. Dickey. He always liked I think it was like Tolley catching him because of the knuckleball.
Ass pitcher or ass catcher.
Yeah,
well, both. Dickey was bad with the Jays. Sorry,
he
was good with the Mets, but he wasn't good with the Jays.
Right, but the fact that you're taking a catcher with a position that's like limitedly like switched up, it's crazy how they have two in there. Like would you get rid of one now?
No.
Really?
No. Nope. I think it's worth it to have both.
I would trade one. You're gonna get high value for one of them at least, and then you just have one solid catcher throughout the year, and then you upgrade another position. Only because catcher.
If they were to do that, they would have to get rid of McCann because
Grandal
has this great contract. You know, he's getting his bag, and it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I think there's some serious value, especially a catcher having two studs. Is cool and all, but at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the number one position you want to have two really good players at because they can only play catcher. There's nothing else they can do. They just sit on the bench for that thing. It's kind of just waste.
Yeah, a little bit, and it kind of sucks for that case because, I think it would be great for them to get rid of James McCann. I wouldn't do it if it were me, but it would be good for them this year because Real Muto is the only decent catcher that's coming out into free agency this year. So if one team scoops up JT Real Muto, but several teams wanted a good catcher, oh, here you go. Here's a good guy. Give us something good. But that's kind of.
I think they should definitely explore the trade markets with both players because if they get a better offer for one of them, it just makes more sense. Obviously, you would take it, but I don't think there's really a point in having two good players. But at the end of the day, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. I think it's cool that they had both players in the running for the award. But I mean, I would get rid of one.
Yeah. Another part to the White Sox before we go on to the other Chicago team and their position is they were actually the league leader with 8 finalists, which is kind of impressive.
Wow.
Over 7 positions. I can't remember what the 2 positions that they didn't have because it would have been only 1 position, but obviously because they had 2 at catcher, that means that there was only 6 others. But nonetheless, still incredible. Still incredible that they had like an entire team of good players. Like
Chicago's gonna be a solid team for the next bit.
They got severely snubbed, and I hate it because I wanted the White Sox to get further.
I think that the White Sox could have gave Tampa a run.
They could have gave literally
CS.
any AL team a run.
Yep.
I think they were one of the front runners. I didn't bet against them. I bet for them against the Oakland A's, but because they didn't get past them, I didn't have a chance to put them any further. I would have put them past the A's, which I did. And then whether Houston or Minnesota won, I definitely would have picked the White Sox. White Sox would have beat either of them. And then that means that they would have had to face, the Rays, but had the Rays lost, it could have been the Jays. They would have beat the Jays. I can guarantee that.
Yeah.
Yankees or Indians, they would have beat the Indians. It's a debate on the Yankees, but I would say probably. And then the Rays, which is maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know that they beat the Dodgers. I don't think there was.
I think it would have been cool to see at least. I almost see the White Sox. They're kind of like that Padres kind of team. They're solid.
How awesome would that have been to have 2 teams that were like coming up, the White Sox and the Padres face each other in the World Series?
I thought that would have been really cool.
That would have been incredible. On to the next Chicago team. The Cubs had 2 of 3 pitchers. I don't fully agree with this one just because. So Kyle Hendricks, yes, he's always been a good defensive catcher. He's been a very ground bally, masterfully. He's like a younger, obviously younger because he's not playing anymore. But he's like a version of Greg Maddux to me.
Yeah, okay, fair.
He's very, very control freak. He's called the professor for a reason, right? But then Alec Mills, I don't guarantee that he will even have a chance. I can't remember what the third pitcher was, but it's between Hendricks and the other pitcher. Because for me, Mills is only really on there because he had a perfect game. Or not a perfect game, a no-hitter.
No-hitter, yeah. Yeah, it'll be cool to see who wins. The Cubs, Chicago seems like they're really putting in some solid baseball this year.
They are.
The Cubs are going to be solid for like the next probably 5 years guaranteed. They have contracts that are they're not even close to being expired yet. I think Rizzo's
coming out, and you know what?
Right.
I could see him signing for a smaller contract because he hasn't been super fantastic the past couple of years. But
I don't see him leaving either.
No,
I think his heart is kind of set in Chicago.
Yeah, and I mean he's been a hometown favorite. People love that guy.
It's hard not to.
And I mean Bryant loves him way too much for and like Baez loves him and Contreras loves him. All the players love him. So if Chicago got rid of him, they'd basically be doing a disservice to
and I think the other players would even take pay cuts for him to stay. Chicago Cubs are going to be good. The White Sox are going to be – they're on the rise.
Oh, my God. They're going to be so good. I can guarantee you they're going to win a ring in the next 5 years. Well, I can –
okay.
I could put a bet down for that. I could see it happening.
Wow, okay. We know how your bettings are, so
that'd be a long con bet, and it would definitely depend on how they do their trades and stuff the next couple of years. But they definitely have it going. They got rid of Renteria, which was a big part of what I thought was their issue. Now they just need a new DH. Most of their position players are fine. Maybe get a backup for Louis Robert for when he has his slumps, because he's an on-off.
I think the White Sox went out and got LeMahieu. I think that would
be pretty sweet. The only issue is there's him and Tim Anderson.
Right. Yeah.
So you'd have to switch one of their positions, and I think you'd have to switch LeMahieu. But
right.
Where would you put him? Right.
He's a good batter. Putting him at DH could be an option. Obviously, he's gonna hit. I don't know. It'd be interesting to add that bat to the lineup. I think would be very cool.
Yeah.
I think that would really contribute to them putting up the extra couple runs that they need during games. Their pitching is solid. I think there's like a couple of good moves on the table. There's a lot of free agents this year that are older. You could sign like 1-2 year deals that could make.
I think that's all it's going to really be, other than Real Muto. I think there's only going to be 1 and 2 year deals for like a vast majority.
I think Bauer could sign long term.
Oh yeah, him. I forgot about him. Yeah, but yeah, him too. So I want to also mention that I think pretty much all the Gold Gloves, for the most part, there's maybe like 1 or 2 that are kind of iffy. Like I don't think Alec Mills it was a very good choice, but for the most part, I think the Gold Gloves were probably the best choices. The only catcher, like the AL catcher, I think Jansen actually did have a chance. This is a little bit of Jay's favoritism, but at the same time, like he had a lot of great pickoffs. He had a lot of great actions going on. And I mean, he had a game where he threw 3 guys out trying to steal in one game. Like I feel like that's impressive. And he's not the greatest framer. He was a bad bat, but that doesn't matter. He had a great catching year. So I don't think he
played his position solid
to the best he could.
Right. I don't think there's any doubt in our minds that he was by far the best catcher they had on the team. Reese McGuire is honestly not that good. I don't like Reese McGuire.
No, they need to trade him.
Get rid of him. I think that they can develop Jansen. He's young.
And then Kirk, he looks like he's going to be good, but I don't know that they should keep him as a catcher. I think he could be a great first base, because then Vlad could go DH, or they could swap back and forth depending on who develops better at first. And then this is maybe something for our next episode if we take too long, but I think we need a new third base. I think we'll discuss maybe we'll have a small episode as to what we think the Jays need, because we'll talk about the Jays. We'll have it because we like the Jays. Come on, we like the Jays. We like all teams, but we like the Jays
a little bit more than the
others. So for our pal Braden, I thought I'd mention that the Pirates actually did good fielding, which was. I mean, the Rays didn't get any, and the Pirates got 2.
Yeah, from a team that was like, 19 wins this year?
Yeah.
Their defense wasn't really the issue. They just could not put runs together to save their lives.
I want to give an incredible stat that I thought was, incredible. I was looking at an article by Dan Szymborski or something like that. Whatever. His name's weird. Good article, though. I even tweeted saying it was one of the best articles I read. So listen to these stats. Impressively, the Pirates were projected with the tied for 5th worst number of wins. Not the worst, 5th worst. So they were actually projected to be an okay team. And they were projected to win 26 games, which is
not bad.
I mean, that's
a bit under 500.
That's a bit under 500, but I mean, if you get that close to 500, you're not a bad team.
No, respectable, but definitely not good.
There were several teams that were supposed to be below them. The Orioles were supposed to be the worst with only 20 wins. The Mariners with 22, Tigers with 23, and even the Marlins with 25. And instead, they actually had the worst with 19, like in real life. They had 19 wins. Only one team had a worse differential in what they were projected to win and what they actually won, and that was the Nationals, because for some reason they projected them to win 34 games despite them losing Rendon and then Strasburg being injured pretty quickly. They went down from 34 to 26, so they had an 8 game differential versus the Pirates 7. The 7 differential, for a reference for Braden, because he definitely thinks that the Pirates are better than many teams, but I'll give an example of our team being better. The Jays had a +5 differential because they were projected to win only 27, only one more than the Pirates, actually.
The friendly, evenly matched teams. Not evenly matched teams.
They were considered. They were considered to be almost evenly matched teams.
Jays stepped up this year.
They stepped up. They went +5, which they ended up winning 32, which was the second best differential, only by the Marlins, which were projected to be the 5th worst team. So instead of losing 25 games, they won 30, or winning 25, they won 31 or 32 or something like that. Yeah, 31.
Because they were +6, Jays were +5. The Pirates just.
It wasn't good.
Team did not come together this year. If you just watch them, they played dead almost. There was no emotion. They just couldn't do anything. They'd set themselves up okay. Yeah. They left a lot of base runners.
There were some pretty impressive other teams that did, like, they changed more drastically than you would have expected. There was like 6 or 7 teams that they got like right on the dot, which was impressive. Like the Tigers, they won those 23 games. That was it. Stuff like that. But the Yankees were actually a -4. Doesn't surprise me totally, because they didn't do great this season. They had so much potential and they lost it. But at the same time, I don't think it was potential, because we were just hiding the fact that their pitching was garbage.
Yeah.
Other than Cole, but even then he wasn't great. And then the Dodgers, the projected best team with 39 wins, ended up winning 44, going for a +5, tying the Jays.
And that is so hard to do.
Like, that is so impressive. There was only one team that had 38, and then another, which was the Yankees. And then they had a -4. So they did, even the teams that are projected to be about as good as them are not nearly close.
I found there was a lot of variations within the projections. I felt like a lot of teams didn't really hit what they were projected to do this year, whether they're above or below. I think because of the shortened season, everyone played completely different.
Yeah.
It messed with a lot of people. It benefited the Jays. If you looked at the one stat for the Jays of making the playoffs, it was like ridiculously low chance.
It was like, at most, it was something like 8%. I think.
I don't even know if it was that high.
Yeah, it wasn't very high.
And then it was like 14 to 18, I think, percent chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah.
They did make it. I think that would be awesome confidence booster going into next season, playing out the full season. Some key moves need to be made. We'll go into that on another episode for sure. Because I think we could definitely make a full episode out of Jays.
The last thing about the Gold Glove before we talk about the one award that was given out was Gurriel, the only Jay. So we'll talk about. See, we only talk about a little bit of Jays. See, we don't have that much favoritism.
Yeah.
But Gurriel actually, I think, has a decent chance to win his position. The only Jay that's on the ballot for the finalists. He's in the left field, and he was the only one out of the 3 that really had a highlight play. It was a play of the week. He was the only one out of the 3. And he's against 2 players that are, don't get me wrong, they're good. I mean, Alex Gordon, who is now officially retired. He was an incredible fielder. He's won several Gold Gloves. I don't think he wins it this year because he, obviously his age was hitting there a little bit.
He retired and everything.
Yeah.
It kind of just left a negative taste in everyone's mouth, especially when they go to pick who wins. I think they'll definitely take that into consideration.
For sure. And then the second player is Kyle Tucker of the Astros. That one might bite a little for some because, Astros, but he is considered stat-wise to be slightly better, but he didn't have any incredible plays. So that's definitely going to be factored in a little bit because, Gurriel was Gurriel and Gordon were almost on the same page. Gordon was slightly worse. And then Kyle Tucker was just slightly better. However, Gurriel had a couple of incredible plays where, you were like, well, damn.
Yeah, actually not because we're Jays fans and we just saw
they actually had a highlight of the week and they were considering it to be they were voting it to be a highlight of the year.
Not only that it was on a Canadian broadcast, being SportsCenter, obviously the Canadian edition. It was on the MLB. This is the MLB. This is like the entire league-wide and American-based. And then obviously there's a little bit of tension, obviously, between Canada and the States for sports worldwide. So I don't think that really factored in anything.
But I think he actually has a decent chance. And if he loses it, I would consider it a snub. Not because I think he was that much better, but because the other players
I just think he was better.
He was better, but I just think that those players weren't that great. I mean, and Gordon wasn't on a winning team, not even close. The Royals were garbage. And then, the Astros did get further, but it wasn't in part to him. So I don't think he was definitely a factor. The final award before we cut off, because we've hit an hour. Woo!
Nice.
As you guys saw, we did a little under an hour last week. This week we just had a little bit more to talk about, especially because we had some comments.
Thank you, Spencer, for your 8 comments or 7.
Well, whatever. But we're thinking maybe to cut it down to around 50 starting after this episode. Just we'll do a poll on Twitter. Maybe we'll try and do one on Facebook, and if we can try to figure out how to do it on Instagram, if that's even possible, we'll do that too. Maybe do a comment thing, just because we want to figure out what length of time is good for people, and
not taking away from your attention span. I wouldn't consider us like the best at this, but I don't think there's a room for improvement.
I hope that we're at least somewhat interesting to listen to. I mean,
sure.
I guarantee that for people, you don't have to watch. You don't have to watch. I mean, our camera quality isn't great. Our mic quality is definitely better than our camera quality, and we're not trying to be looking great in the background necessarily. We're just trying to give some fun commentary, be a little interesting.
Yeah, whenever you guys want to hear any suggestions, we're more than open
for
to
sure.
hear for whatever.
So the final award was the relievers of the year. I agree with them. There's nothing else really to say. It was Liam Hendricks of the A's. No reliever was even close. Actually, well, lies. Nick Anderson was decent, but I wouldn't put him on that level. And then Devin Williams of the Brewers, which I agree. He was flipping dominant. He was a rookie, I believe. He should have won Rookie of the Year over Jake Cronenworth for the Player Choice Award. I will say that was the only other one that I kind of semi-disagree with. But Cronenworth was on a more winning team on the Padres, so I'm not going to hate on them there.
It's hard to get noticed with the Brewers as well, kind of like a silent team for the past bit.
And a low marketability team.
Right. They haven't really been doing anything at all. Honestly, since Prince Fielder left, like way back, I haven't heard.
No,
there's been no talk.
They've had Yelich, but
Yelich, obviously a solid player, but you need to build your team. Yeah, for sure. So I think that the fact that a Brewer is recognized on, getting an award, I think it'll be good for the city, good for the team. And then
I'm just impressed that it wasn't Hader, because Hader won it last year.
Yeah.
I'm just impressed that, or I think Hader won it. It was either him or Yates. Anyway, nonetheless, I'm just impressed that, they get the relieving pitching. They know what to do there. They just got to figure it out. Everything else.
Yeah.
Well, all right. We'll talk to you guys next time. We'll definitely, we'll do the poll. We'll figure it out what we can do, and keep watching the World Series, because that shit's awesome.
It's going to be so much fun. Really entertaining. Game 5. I think whoever wins this game is going to have serious momentum going into Game 6, and they'll set themselves up very well. I think Game 6 will probably be the most interesting game to watch, but definitely watch Game 5.
I'm still guaranteeing a Game 7. Oh, and I guess quickly thing that will just jut in there real quick, because probably nobody's going to listen this far, is we changed our betting thing a little bit. So we definitely are still going to watch to see if we were right, but we're not going to win. We decided that because the first 2 rounds, pretty much money wise, equal out to the 3rd round.
Right.
And he won the first 2 and I won the 3rd. That had it been any other way, then we probably still would have done it. But because it was that way, what we're going to do is we're just going to get each other a $20 thing. Surprise, kind of.
Yeah, very much so. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good betting.
Fun year.
Right? Yeah, honestly, congratulate the year. Even though it's episode 5 and we got an interesting set of off-season topics to discuss in the following episodes. Just a good way to recap the whole season.
Yeah, for sure. And keep watching over the off season, because we're definitely going to be making episodes every week, even when he goes to London. We're going to be doing stuff all the time. Do some top 10s, do some projecting for teams, do some free agent rumors.
There's gonna be a lot of buzz this offseason.
It's we're gonna be talking about it all. So just
you won't miss anything.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. You'll hear it all.
All right. Have a good Sunday, guys.
Signing off.